So welcome everyone. Welcome to this session today about how to build a very competitive application for graduate programs in the US. So we have the pleasure to have a special speaker today, Lindsey Monson from Georgetown University. She will introduce herself a little bit later. My name is Céline Ouziel. I have been working for the Franco-American Fulbright Commission for a long time now, almost 21 years. And my job is to help students, French students who would like to study in the United States with very general information about the US higher education system and advice on how to apply. And so I usually invite admissions officer or people from admissions office in the US to help you understand what are essentials for them in the application process. So if you have questions for me, you already have my email. You received it with the Zoom link. So it's ouziel@fulbright-france.org. So don't hesitate to contact me after the session. If you have like specific questions about general admissions procedure. Today we're going to talk about the general application procedure, but of course Lindsey will also talk about Georgetown and the McCourt School of Public Policy. But even if you're not applying to Georgetown, I think it would be interesting for you to listen to what Lindsey is going to tell you. So Lindsey, I just give you the mic.
Great, thank you so much. And just want to thank you for hosting this webinar and giving us the opportunity to present to you guys today. And thank you for joining us and taking time out of your busy days to learn more about studying in the United States for grad school. So I'm Lindsey. I am the Associate Director for Admissions at Georgetown's McCourt School of Public Policy. We're located in Washington, D.C. I've worked in admissions at Georgetown for, I think, over 12 years now, which is a long time. I started out at our law center and I worked as like an admissions coordinator and then was like a manager for the admissions office there. And then about 3 years ago, I transferred over to the public policy graduate school and have been working as the admissions assistant director and then associate director now. I'm also a graduate of Georgetown. So I got my Master of Business Administration from Georgetown's McDonough School of Business in 2014. I did the part-time program while working full-time. So I have some experience from an admissions perspective and then also from like a graduate student, like through the admissions process and applying to programs. So what I'm going to talk about today, I'll talk about McCourt and Georgetown and our specific programs towards the end of the session for those that are interested, but I want to keep the session more general in order to provide tips for individuals that are interested in just applying for graduate school in the US. So throughout the presentation, if you want to ask questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I can try to answer them as we go along, but I'll also save some time at the end to answer questions that you guys have. So we'll go ahead and get started. So basic overview, I'm going to go over a few elements that are typical in most graduate school applications. Then I'll give some general application tips from kind of an admissions perspective. And then, like I mentioned, I'll go ahead and end the session by talking about McCourt's graduate program offerings. So we'll start off with talking about like the statement of purpose. We call ours an academic statement. So you might see this, the title of this requirement a little different depending on the program or the school that you're applying for. And for us, the statement of purpose or academic statement is one of the most important pieces of the application because it's really the only time that we get to hear from the applicant directly of why they might be applying to our program, and explaining kind of their motivation for submitting an application, what they can bring to our program, and more importantly, what they're hoping to get out of the program. Like, how does this program help the student, and how do they think that the program can help them achieve whatever general kind of career or professional academic goals that they have moving forward. So these tips may seem super obvious, but I think you'll be surprised what we see when we're reviewing applications from an admissions committee perspective. So first of all, make sure that you are looking specifically at the program requirements. So looking at the application requirements, typically programs have them listed on their website. So make sure that you're looking if there's like a specific prompt for the program, reading it thoroughly, and making sure that you're answering the question in your statement of purpose. So follow directions that are listed there. So that could be, you know, the word length requirement, if they have specific font or style or size, just making sure you're looking at all the specifics for each program. So don't write a generic statement of purpose or academic statement thinking you can use it for all the different graduate programs that you're applying to, because typically for graduate school specifically, they're looking for, they typically have their own question that they want you to answer. So make sure to tailor your answers in your statement specifically to each school. So a lot of times we'll see, I mean, we're in DC, and there's another school that has, you know, George in the name, so George Washington. And so we'll see students that maybe didn't proofread it, and they're mentioning a different school that they're applying to in their academic statement. And that's something you want to try to avoid. And so along with that, make sure you're proofreading whatever you're submitting, and also probably having another person or two people proofread it before you submit it. I know for me, when I've looked at something for a long period of time, I don't see things that might be obvious mistakes for a set of clear eyes to kind of take a look at it. So it's helpful to get somebody that hasn't spent as much time on your academic statement to kind of look at it with a pair of fresh eyes. So I would also say, once you've written your statement, think about your statement and how it might read from the perspective of a faculty member or an admissions committee representative. So, you know, what we want to see, obviously we want to say like, this looks like a great candidate, like very, overall seems like a very well-rounded, strong applicant, but you don't want to leave the question for the committee to ask, but I'm not quite sure why this person is interested in graduate school or our program specifically. So make sure you're stating that in your motivation for applying, and kind of making your case, like, not only are you a good fit for our program, but like, why is our program a good fit for you? So from our perspective, we take a very holistic approach when we review applications. And we really, you know, we're looking for a good fit. Not only are you a good fit for us, but is our program a good fit for you? Because we understand that graduate school is a big investment of time, energy, and financial investment. And so we want to make sure that students kind of know what they're getting into and know like what they can get out of our program. So kind of stating that in the statement of purpose is important. Another general requirement that you'll see is a resume or CV. So for those of you that are not sure what a US resume structure looks like, I would suggest maybe Googling it, searching for that for an example online. But typically what we recommend is 1 to 2 page resume is most appropriate. A lot of people just do a 1-page resume. But if you need to you have more experience that you want to list, 2 pages is fine. We kind of want you to avoid long resumes that are, 4 to 5 pages. We're looking at a lot of applications. So the resume really is just kind of to give us like a snapshot of the most relevant experience that you think that the admissions committee needs to know about your experience, and why, how that would be beneficial or makes you qualified for the program that you're applying to. Typically, our resumes are chronological in order. So your most recent work experience is listed at the top of the resume, and it does include educational history. So it's up to you whether you want to put the educational history at the top, or if you want to put the work experience first. So if you are closer to your education history, you might want to list that first. If you've been out of school for a longer time, maybe putting like your professional most relevant experience before the educational history might be better for you, but that's up to you. So if you're thinking about what experience to include, and maybe you're close to, you only have a couple years out from graduation of undergrad, you can include internships, you can include volunteer experience, extracurriculars. We really like to see leadership experience and potential. So making sure you're kind of highlighting those on your resume. And then if you have any significant awards or honors, you can include those as well. So definitely take a look at maybe some samples online if you're not really sure how to structure it. I think that would be a good way to get more information or an idea of what a resume looks like in a US format. Test scores. So this is a really big concern for a lot of applicants, and something that I think produces a lot of anxiety, because it's something that, you know, does take time to prepare for. What we would recommend is whatever program or graduate school that you're applying for, again, taking a look at their application requirements and specifically what test scores they accept, and then also if there's any minimum requirements. So for us, we do require a standardized test score, but we don't have any numerical cutoffs. So we don't have any minimum scores that you need to achieve, because we do take a very holistic approach when we review applications. But some schools may have a minimum. You need to at least score, you know, this in the verbal section of the GRE, or this score in the quantitative section. So just making sure you're aware of those minimum requirements. So when you're studying, you're making sure you're kind of hitting those requirements. For us, we also require an English proficiency test if you're a non-native English speaker. So we will require either a TOEFL or IELTS. And we do have some minimum requirements for that. And that's also something that I would encourage you to reach out, and it should be listed on the application requirements section of the website. But if you can't find it, reaching out to the admissions department for more information on that. Make sure you're allowing yourself time to prepare for the test, and then for also the scores to be available and that to be sent to the school. So a lot of folks get stuck on this. They have the rest of their application ready, but they, you know, didn't schedule or give themselves enough time for to sit for the test and for the test scores to be available. So maybe they are taking the test 2 days before the application is due. And unfortunately for us, we can't review applications until we've received all of the required materials, which includes the official test score reports. So kind of looking, I would, you know, when you're preparing your application or researching, kind of looking at the test score requirements, seeing what the general time frame that they recommend to prepare for the test, and then also for the test scores to be available, and then kind of working backwards to decide when the best time for you would to schedule the test for. And also sometimes, you know, the first time you take the test, you might not do as well as you'd like to do, and you want to maybe save some time to have some buffer if you want to retake the exam before the deadline. So just making sure you're kind of thinking about that ahead of time and not leaving that until the last minute. And there are several different kinds of tests for graduate school. The most popular exam, or the one that is most graduate schools prefer, is the GRE, which is the General Record Exam, and that's for most graduate programs. The GMAT is the General Management Test, and that is typically for business schools. The LSAT is for law schools, and then the MCAT is for medical school. For our MPP program, we have some dual programs. We do have a dual program with the Law Center and with the business school. So while most applicants submit the GRE, we will also accept the GMAT or the LSAT, because we don't want students having to take more than one exam if they don't have to. But that's specifically for our program. So I just bring that up as an example, as it's important, because each program is different in their requirements and what they'll accept. So making sure you're aware of that. And then again, for the English proficiency, we accept TOEFL or IELTS. I think there's also other exams like Duolingo. I'm not sure off the top of my head what some other ones are, but some of them we will accept and some we won't. So making sure that you're preparing and taking the exam that your graduate program accepts. So that's kind of an overview of the test scores. I know it's anxiety producing, but if you prepare for it, that is another thing that you still probably have control over in your application. So you may not have control over your undergraduate record because that's something that's in the past and you're not currently able to change that. So, but with test scores, you can, you still have time to prepare and that's a way that you can show the committee what your skills are and how like you can study and prepare for a test. So it's something that you still have control over when preparing your application. So next we have letters of recommendation. So this is usually just a matter of following instructions. So each program again has their own requirements for letters of recommendation. For example, we require 3 letters of recommendation. Some schools only require 2, and I know like our law center only requires 1. So making sure you're aware of how many each program requires. So stick to the required number. Some people will reach out to us and say, you know, I know you only require 3, but I really would like to submit 5. And unfortunately, again, because we are reviewing a large number of applications each year, we don't really recommend you submitting more than our required amount. And we really strongly suggest that you just pick the top 3 that can write you the strongest recommendations. So we don't want you submitting 10 recommendations. I think we can make a decision based on the 3 that we ask for. So making sure you're sticking to that required number. Requesting them early, so don't wait till the last minute and give your recommenders a week turnaround or 2-day turnaround. Making sure that you're asking them, you know, at least a month or maybe even more than that, because you don't know kind of what's going on with the recommender. They may be busy with their, you know, what's on their plate for work, or they might be writing other letters of recommendation. They may have stuff going on in their personal life where they're out of the country or just not, you're not able to access them, and it may take some time for them to get back to you. So making sure you're giving your recommenders enough time to for you to contact them and for them to write the recommendation letter, and being respectful of their time, you know, just kind of being mindful of that. It also can be helpful to talk to the recommenders about the program that you're applying to and what your goals are, so they can be specific in the letters that they're writing for you. So you can share a copy of your resume with them to refresh them, because they may not know exactly what you've been up to since they were last in contact with you, and then also discuss what the letter should contain. So again, different programs have different requirements. So for us, we simply just ask the recommenders to upload just a free form letter of recommendation. So other programs have questions that they want the recommender to answer. So it's not just a free form letter. They have specific questions that the recommender goes into like an online portal and answers. So making sure you're kind of know what the format of those letters are before you ask someone to write the letter of recommendation. Who should you choose? So this comes up a lot. For us, we prefer at least 1 academic and 1 professional if possible, but that's not a hard requirement. So some folks, you know, they've been out of school for a number of years and aren't super close to any professors. So they prefer to write 3 professional, or they think that their 3 professional kind of speak to more of their abilities than maybe an academic reference would. And that's totally fine. Or vice versa. You don't have a ton of professional experience and you have 3 really strong academic references. You know, we want you to choose recommendation writers who know you the best and can speak to your abilities and write you the strongest recommendations. Other folks you may want to consider are a coach for maybe a team that you are on, a mentor, or maybe you know somebody from a volunteer capacity that can kind of speak to your community service. or leadership skills that you've demonstrated there. And that's totally fine. I think what you want to avoid, obviously, is somebody that's a personal reference, like a friend or a family member. Definitely wanting to have somebody that kind of knows you from an academic, professional, volunteer, kind of supervisor, mentor perspective. So some folks also, maybe they work at a place where there's someone that they maybe are indirectly kind of associated with is really well known, and the name they think might be impressive for the admissions committee, but that person doesn't necessarily know them really well and would write kind of more of a generic letter of recommendation. We want to suggest that to discourage you to do that. So we'd actually prefer to not really know who the person is that's writing the recommendation letter, and for it to be more specific and can kind of really speak to your strengths and abilities and how you might contribute to our program, versus a generic template from, the president of your country, So that's kind of what we suggest. So we're not, while that can be impressive, it doesn't really tell us a lot about you as like the applicant. So some general tips, just from an admissions perspective. I think I've kind of talked about this, just being aware of basic requirements for different programs. So different programs have some prerequisites. So for us, we have a Principles of Microeconomics course prerequisite. You can still apply without it and receive a conditional admission, but you do need to take it prior to joining the program. So just knowing what the basic requirements are for coursework or professional experience. So for us, we don't have, for some of our programs, we do have professional experience requirements, 2 years of professional experience, 5 years. Others, we don't have professional experience requirements. So just knowing what those basic requirements are. And also for test scores, what the application requirements in general are, like, how many letters of recommendation, what test scores, that sort of thing. Also understanding the scholarship requirements and process. So this is different for each program. A lot of people ask about merit-based scholarships. For us, it's not a separate application requirement. But we do have certain deadlines that you have to apply by in order to be considered for scholarship. So we have an early action deadline and a priority deadline. So if you apply by those deadlines, you're automatically considered for merit-based scholarship based on your original application materials. You don't have to submit anything else. Our final deadline, though, we've typically awarded our scholarships by this time, and so you're not guaranteed to be considered for scholarship, but you are considered for full admissions consideration. So knowing if there's different deadlines for scholarships, if there's different applications for scholarships, that should be listed on the website for your school, but if it's hard to find, I would suggest writing or sending an email or calling the admissions department to ask and clarify those deadlines and requirements. Again, paying attention to deadlines, making sure you are aware of admissions deadlines, scholarship deadlines, so you're able to kind of plan kind of based on that deadline. And schools have different deadlines. There's not just one standard deadline for all graduate schools in the U.S. So interviews. So some schools do have an interview requirement for all applicants. Others, it's more on a invitation only basis. So making sure you kind of know what those requirements are. And if you are asked to come to an interview, making sure you prepare for that interview. So making sure you're doing your research, you're coming prepared with questions, because it not only is it an interview for the graduate school to learn more about you, but it's an opportunity for you to learn more about the graduate school and if it's a good fit for you. So make sure you prepare and have questions, because typically the interviewer is going to ask if you have any questions for them. And personally, when I interview people, it doesn't necessarily seem like they're that interested in our program if they don't come with questions. Supplemental information. So some schools have some optional statements, or they're asking for, like for us, we're pretty quantitatively rigorous. So we ask you to list different classes that you've taken that give you that exposure to the quantitative skill sets that we think would be helpful for our students in our program. So making sure you're filling that information out, and each program has different things that they look for. So you might, for each application, they need a resume or an academic statement and test scores, but there might be different supplemental information that they're also requiring. So making sure you just are aware of all the requirements for each program and that you're checking those boxes off. Because sometimes we can't review your application unless we have everything. And I think that's another point is, you're as an applicant responsible for making sure that you've submitted everything. So typically graduate programs, or they have an online portal where you can check the status of your application because you're submitting a lot of different materials. So typically they'll update that so you can see, like, have they received all my letters? Have they received my test scores? So don't just assume because you submitted it that it's been received. So there's a lot of stuff that happens on the back end, and we're receiving a lot of information. So we also, are human and sometimes miss things. So it's good to follow up and making sure that all your T's are crossed and I's are dotted, and making sure that the committee has your application and all the required materials in time for the deadline. Again, try not to wait to the last minute. I think a lot of people, kind of scramble and put themselves in a position where they're feeling really stressed out, and they're not able to really put their best application forward because they've waited until the last minute. So give yourself some buffer time. I mean, I would suggest trying to submit the application at least a week before the deadline, just to kind of make sure there's no issues with submitting the application, and that you have some time to like troubleshoot or kind of correct anything that you may have missed before like the final deadline. And, I think it's good to know what the deadline is. Like, again, some schools have some flexibility with deadlines, some are very strict. So it can't hurt to ask the admissions department, like, so the time, like, is this due at midnight in my time zone or your time zone? If I submit the application, can I still have some time to submit the letters of recommendation, or does everything need to be submitted by that date? That's also important to know. Again, proofread the application, ask other people to help you with that, advisors, friends, family members, supervisors, helping you kind of look at the academic statement or anything else, so they can catch any little mistakes, because it's a lot of information. And if you're applying to more than one graduate school, it's perfectly common, or I mean, it happens, like we put the wrong name of the school, or we miss a period, or we forget to put the title or whatever, the format isn't exactly what the school is looking for. So making sure you're proofreading and maybe having a second or third pair of eyes look at it as well. And another just general tip, so if you apply, you can be admitted, you could be rejected, you could also be waitlisted. So if you're waitlisted, it means, from our perspective, we see that you have the potential to be a good addition to our cohort, but we just need to kind of wait and see to see if we have what the rest of the application pool looks like and if we have seats available. So if you're really interested in a school and you've been waitlisted, I think some people think, well, I'll just wait and see, and they don't do anything about being on the wait list. But I think from an admissions perspective, if people are waitlisted and they are proactive about reaching out to express their interest in our program, and maybe try to talk with an admissions representative after they've been waitlisted, submitting letters of continued interest, any updates that they think would strengthen their application, all of that shows that you're very interested in our program, and you take it very seriously. So all of that can look good when we are reviewing waitlisted candidates for open seats. And then finally, communicate with the admissions department. That's kind of what we're here for. We are the face of the university. We're typically very we take customer service very seriously, and we want to be helpful in trying to make the application process as stress-free and transparent as possible. So usually there's an admissions email address, a phone number, list of admissions officers. Just feel free to reach out, and no question is a dumb question. We've all been there, and we understand it can be an overwhelming process, and we just want to try to be as helpful as possible. So make sure you're using those contacts and asking questions that you're not sure of, or just maybe you just need some more clarification, or if you want more information about the school in general and what like the culture is, or you want to talk to a current student or a faculty member or somebody from the leadership team, feel free to ask admissions if that's possible, or if there's a class that you could visit. So typically we have a lot of resources available that help you get a sense of our community and our school. So we want to help you get the information that you need to make the best decision for you. So those are kind of the general application tips that I have. So if anybody has questions generally, you can go ahead and put them in the chat while I kind of quickly review just McCourt School programs for anybody that's interested. So the McCourt School at Georgetown, we are a graduate school only. We don't have undergraduate students that are in McCourt yet. It's something that we are hoping to have an undergraduate kind of track in the next couple of years, and we don't have any doctoral students. So that means like all of our resources at McCourt are directed towards our graduate students. So we have 5 degree programs. Our flagship program is the Master of Public Policy. It's our oldest and largest program at McCourt. We have a full-time and part-time option. The full-time you can complete in 3 years, the full-time you can complete in 2 years, the part-time you can complete in 3 years, and the part-time, all the core classes are in the evening, so it's really great for working professionals. We're pretty quantitatively rigorous for an MPP program, so we're all about educating our students and giving them the skills necessary to drive evidence-based policy-making decisions. So you're taking a 3-course quantitative method sequence in the core. Most other MPP programs only require 2. There's also 2 microeconomics courses, and then 3 political process and institutions courses, where you can choose also to do the domestic version or the international comparative version. So you can kind of study international policy with the MPP as well. And then there's a capstone requirement, and then we have electives, and that's really, we don't have any formal concentrations, and electives is really where you can tailor the program to meet your specific interests and needs. So if there's a specific policy area you want to kind of dive deeper into, if you want to take more skills-based courses, we also allow you to take electives that are other graduate programs at Georgetown. So if there's a law course or a business course or a class at the Foreign Service School, at the elective level, we can try to help you enroll in that. We also have a consortium agreement with other DC area schools. So if there is like an elective that we don't offer that another school does, we have a way of working with their academic team to see if our students can enroll in those electives as well. So lots of elective options to kind of tailor the program to what you're looking for. Our next program is a Master of International Development Policy. It is a more specialized kind of version of the MPP. So it's got 2 additional core classes, 2 fewer electives because it's already specialized. So it's a 2-year full-time program only. It's a very small cohort of about 25 students that enter that program each year. I forgot to mention for our MPP, we have about 125 students that enter the program full-time each year, and about 20 to 25 students that enter the part-time program. Each year for the International Development Policy, because it's a specialized program and a small cohort, there is a 2-year relevant postgraduate work experience requirement, whereas our MPP, there's no work experience requirement, although students have about 2 to 3 years on average of work experience. But we have that work experience requirement for the MIDP program because it is a small cohort. It's very specialized. We want our students that are coming into that program to kind of know that that's the career path they want to go into. And then also because it's a small cohort, the experience really kind of enriches like the classroom experience and discussion. So it's a great program for folks that are interested in development. It's also quantitatively rigorous. All of those core courses, like the 3-course quantitative method sequence and the 2 course micro requirements, those are requirements of the MIDP program, but all of those are kind of focused on the development world. So all the case studies and data sets are going to have some sort of development spin to them. Next, our Master of Data Science for Public Policy. This is our newest program at McCourt. I think it's only been, this is like the third class that we are recruiting. So we have one class that just graduated. It's a very small cohort as well. It's about 25 students that enter the program each year. It's really at the intersection of data science and public policy. We created the program because we saw a disconnect really between public policy experts and data scientists. And, we do think that data and using data to drive evidence-based policymaking decisions is super important, but we were just seeing that there's a disconnect, like folks that are really in the data don't really have the policy expertise to know what questions to ask, what data to look at, and how to communicate it to people in those leadership decision-making roles. So this is really kind of bridging that gap. And so half of the core curriculum is coming from the data analytics master's program at Georgetown, and half is coming from like our MPP program. So it's a very core heavy program. It's a 2-year full-time program. There's only 2 electives. The rest is core because we, really didn't want to sacrifice the core from either side. So it's really kind of balanced in that way. But it's for folks that kind of want to tool up in like that data analytics toolkit, while also kind of getting like the policy, like looking at it from a policy lens. Our Master of Policy Management is our mid-career professional, and I say that in quotes because I think it's a little misleading, because the professional experience requirement for this program is 5 years, which is still pretty early on. It's not technically mid-career, but at least 5 years of professional experience. This program kind of takes more of a 30,000-foot look at policy, whereas our Masters of Public Policy is kind of at the ground level. So it's looking at it from like the policy consumer perspective versus like a policy analysis producer. So our MPM students are likely kind of going to be in leadership or management positions where they might be managing our MPP graduates and looking at the policy analysis that those folks are creating and being able to look at it critically in order to make decisions about what policy or project is the best to put forward. So it is a 1 calendar year program, so it is a little bit different in structure if you're taking it full time. It starts in the summer, or other programs start in the fall. So the summer semester is, for a full-time student, it is 4 weeks of 4 different classes. So each class is 1 week intensive learning, and it's a week long of our summer institutes. So you're doing that in the summer, and then you have a fall and a spring semester. If you can do this program part-time, and that would be a summer, fall, spring, summer, fall, spring. And you're taking 2 classes at a time. So you would take 2 summer institutes the first summer and 2 summer institutes the second summer. The semester classes are held in the evening. So if you are a working professional, you can do that in the evening. But the summer institutes are held with full-time students, so they would be during the day. So if you're doing a part-time program, you would have to at least take 2 weeks out of each summer to come and attend during the day for 2 weeks. And then finally, we have our Executive Master of Policy Leadership program. This is a different format where it's kind of hybrid, where you're coming to campus for a week in person. I think the Executive Master for Policy Leadership, there's like 10 hybrid courses. So for each of those, you're 1 week on campus, and then it's like a 2-week online requirement where you're doing readings and assignments virtually. So it kind of is a good schedule for folks that are maybe working outside the DC area or have a full-time, really executive level job that they can only commit to coming to class for 1 week for each session. And it's at least 7 years of professional experience. So it is kind of for folks that are a little bit more advanced in their careers, looking to really enhance their leadership and executive management level skill sets. So we have more information about that on our website. We have like a certificate program as well, Executive Master of Policy, or Executive Certificate of Policy Leadership. And then I think there's a health policy certificate as well in our education or executive program. So we have more information about that if you're interested on our website. The McCourt Advantage, I think that there's a lot of things that make McCourt and Georgetown just a unique and great place to study public policy, if that's what you're interested in. I think one thing that we really value is our community. It's a very collaborative and supportive community. Georgetown is a Jesuit institution, and that doesn't mean that those that's really like an in-your-face type of thing that you're gonna like be aware of on a daily basis, but like those traditions and values are really woven into the curriculum and the community. So it's a lot about men and women in service to others and educating the whole person, which really kind of goes hand in hand with public policy and public service. So there's really like a sense of that collaboration and service and community at McCourt. And then so I would say that our students are really engaged. They're engaged in the classroom and outside the classroom, in student organizations and community involvement. And then also in the classroom, our faculty and leadership are very engaged with our student body. They care about our students. They want to see them succeed. And that's kind of what their priorities are. So a lot of student faculty interactions and student leadership interactions. So it's really just a very welcoming, collaborative community. Our curriculum, like I mentioned, I think that's something we think sets us apart and we do really well, is kind of the quantitative aspect of it, like really training our students with the skills necessary to drive evidence-based policymaking decisions and giving students those hard skills to do the policy analysis or be critical of critical consumers of policy. So that's something we think we do really well and something that sets us apart maybe from other programs. Like I mentioned, there's tons of learning opportunities outside the class. I think being a school at Georgetown gives our students a lot of access to experts that are teaching at Georgetown and McCourt. We're also in DC, so we attract a lot of policy experts and big names that come and give lectures or give talks or discussions, panels at our school. So there's just like always something going on outside the classroom, events to take advantage of at Georgetown and then just DC in general. And also because we're, if you're interested in policy, we're the policy kind of center of the country. And there's just tons of job opportunities, intern opportunities that you can take advantage of as a student here in networking. So there's just like a lot that just being in DC has to offer students that are interested in working in policy. Like I mentioned, we have world-class faculty and policy experts that are coming to Georgetown to interact with our students. We have an Office of Career Development that is dedicated to our students and our graduate students. And it's not a placement office, but they do offer a lot of support. I think 99% of our students have received employment within 6 months of graduation. We have like over 90% do at least one internship during their time at McCourt. We have 30 to 40% that do more than one internship. So our career development team is really kind of there for you every step of the way. They look at your career search as kind of a parallel process to your academic career at Georgetown. So they're offering, one-on-one strategy sessions to help you kind of brainstorm what your career path looks like and how to kind of achieve the goals you've set for yourself. They have professional development workshops and online jobs and internship database. They do a lot of networking events and bring recruiters to campus. So they do resume cover letter reviews, mock interviews. So they really do provide a lot of resources for our students to kind of help them navigate that process. And then we also have a very global alumni network and reputation. Like I mentioned, about 30 or 45% of our student body in general, 35% of our student body in general is international, and then with the MPP program specifically, it's about 45%. So we really value international students, and our students come here and maybe they get jobs in the U.S. at first, but then maybe they go back to their home countries to work, and so that really kind of gives us like a very strong alumni global network. So those are kind of just some things that we really value about McCourt and really think that, give us that advantage for our graduate students. So yeah, we'll take some questions now. You can always reach out to us at the admissions department, McCourtadmissions@georgetown.edu. And then this is just the link to our website in general to learn more. So it looks like there's a couple questions in the chat that I'm seeing. I think Raphael is asking, what typical mistakes do you see international applicants make? That's a tough question. It's hard to know off the top of my head generally if there's anything that international applicants make, but I think that just kind of knowing that the US application system might be different than the international application process. And then also I think with test scores and kind of just knowing what that those requirements and what that process looks like, I think that is something that, just making sure you're doing your research and getting informed and asking questions if you're not quite sure, because it can be different. And then also we have a lot of international students, so if we have on our website McCourt ambassadors, so maybe there's someone from your country that you could talk to about their experience applying to graduate schools, just to see what hiccups they ran into, because I think it really depends on the country that you're applying from, and it's different experience for different students. Okay, so someone else is asking, what's a policy regarding the translation of official transcripts in French from a French university, for that matter, into English? So we, and this is again different for each program, so making sure you're aware of program requirements. So we suggest that students use WES, the evaluation service, if possible, so submitting your transcripts to them, and they'll provide us with the originals along with the certified English translation that they do. If that's not, we know that's expensive, we know not everybody has access to that, so if you're going to be submitting your transcripts to us directly, we would require that you have them translated, so you would need to have the official original transcript taken to a certified translator, and they would be able to certify that they received the documents sealed, and that they've translated it, and it's a certified translation. And then you can submit those to us once that translation has been done. So we need the originals and then the certified translation. And you can upload those to your application for review purposes. And then we'll need the hard copies if you're admitted and decide to enroll for the official final transcript.
Well, Lindsay, as I wrote, I started to answer to Antoine about that. I see some admissions offices that accept translations that have been done by non-certified translators, but the translation itself is certified by the school. Would it be okay with you?
From the school that they're applying from, as long as the school is certifying that and that's coming directly from the school, then that would be fine. It just can't be certified by the applicant. We need some sort of, third party that is looking at it and knowing that it's a legitimate translation and being able to document that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It really depends on the admissions offices, just as I wrote. So
right, exactly. So definitely, if you have a question about that, it should be listed on their website. But I understand it can be hard to read and understand. So sometimes it might be easier just to get on the phone with someone or on a Zoom call right now, or email, just to kind of clarify. And that we see that all the time. So better to be safe than sorry, and make sure you're understanding the requirements before going through the trouble of submitting it and learning that you have to do it a different way. So
there's a question about the Fulbright program. So I work for the Franco-American Fulbright Commission. So for those of you who don't know what the Fulbright program is, it's a scholarship program. It's international between the United States and about 160 countries in the world. But each candidate needs to apply through his country of nationality. So even if you live in France, if you studied in France, if you're not a French citizen, you cannot apply to the Franco-American Commission. You need to apply to your country in your country of citizenship. So it's just the rule for 70 years. For the moment, we didn't change this rule. However, there are other scholarships, and most graduate school, so Lindsey talked about their scholarship program, it's mostly based on merit, right?
Yes.
And so many graduate schools in the US have their own scholarship programs. So again, just check with each of the program. Anyway, the Fulbright scholarships, I mean, in France, we only have like 10 scholarships for degree seeking students every year. So it's not much. I mean, it's very competitive, and we don't have a big budget. Sometimes it's better to apply in another country. In some countries, they have more money. So
yeah, and our scholarships are mostly partial as well. So a lot of graduate students, they have different ways of financing their degree and kind of pulling from different pots of financing. So they find third-party scholarships like the Fulbright, or maybe something else in their country, a government scholarship, or from their employer. And then they do a mix of that, maybe some merit-based funding from the school they're applying for, and then some personal savings, or they get a graduate assistantship while you can work on campus to kind of to get some spending money that way. So there's different ways to finance the education, and we kind of see a lot of international students kind of pulling from different areas, and that takes some time to prepare for and apply for, and just making sure you're kind of thinking about that process as well, along with the admissions application.
Just to finish on about the Fulbright program, I mean, from France, I don't know if some of the participants have already applied. The deadline was December 1st. So if you didn't submit your application, it's too late for 2021, and we don't accept more candidates now. Oh, okay. I think I just answered to the question, to Julia's question. I'm French, and I'm wondering if I can still apply for the Fulbright scholarship. No, it's too late. Sorry.
I think that's all the questions that I see that have come in so far.
I think so.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Lindsey.
Of course. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate this opportunity to connect with students and kind of tell them a little bit more about the graduate application process and McCourt and Georgetown. And, I'm happy to answer any additional questions offline. So send us an email at mccourtadmissions@georgetown.edu, and we're pretty quick to respond within like 24 to 48 hours. So happy to help.
Mm-hmm. Well, so if you want to have more information about the Fulbright scholarship, maybe for 2022, because sometimes it's even better to plan ahead. So you can check on our website. I will write it on on the chat. So the website of the Franco-American Fulbright Commission is Fulbright with one L. Don't put two L's at Fulbright. Fulbright-france.org, and then you just click on Programme Fulbright and Partenaires. And if you want information, general information about the US higher education system, you can also check another section in our website that is called simply Étudier aux États-Unis. And you can also contact me if you have questions. I also answer questions for students who are not applying for the Fulbright program, and it's not only for Fulbright candidates. I didn't explain that at first, but I am part of the Education USA network, which is an international network of advisors who help international students understand the US higher education system. If you're not living in France, maybe some of you are connecting from outside of France, check the Education USA website, educationusa.state.gov, and click on Find Your Advising Center to find the nearest advisors to your home. Well, thank you, everybody. And I hope you will make a good application to US universities. And thank you, Lindsey, and have a wonderful end of year holidays. And we hope 2021 will start with good news.
Yes, thank you.